All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar presentation today. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter. It is promptly 2 p.m. Eastern Time, albeit my computer is about 3 minutes slow here. I'm pretty sure it's exactly 2 here. Welcome to all of you to our 20-minute coffee break webinar on linking, donations, accounting, and payroll. We're going to work for the next 20 minutes. Hopefully you had an opportunity to log in early enough to view some of the video presentation at the beginning that talks about some various things about the webinar. It's just, well, no, it looks like I've got somebody here answering questions. If you have questions, type those in. Ross will be doing his best to try to help out with that today. I'm sure he'll do great. If not, then I'll try to, if he asks me to, I'll repeat the question for everyone's benefit, and we'll see what we can't do to get that answered. However, if you do have questions during the presentation today, please don't hesitate to type those in the questions portion of the webinar, and he'll do his best to try to get those answered for you. We do like to also mention that, we will, he may ask you to contact technical support for answering a question that you have, not because we don't want to answer it, but generally we need more information or it's something specific to your particular data, and we're simply unable to answer it during the webinar presentation. So let's go ahead and dive into our topic. If you at any point got what you came to see here today, please use the file menu, click exit, leave webinar. Thank you so much in advance for attending. So the word linking is used around and used in church windows in several different places in several different ways. You'll hear the word linking used in a number of different places. They're all very, very important. Some are more, understood or comprehended than others, but the linking in any one of the places that it occurs in church windows are vitally important to the successful reporting of the software and the data that's entered, and to our to knowing where our money and our transactions are being transferred to, okay, or our monies are posting to. So we're going to talk about those linking places and locations and how important they are and where they can really play some havoc with your reports if you're not careful or if you don't check that. The links that I'm going to talk about are probably are important enough that if I were managing a database for a church somewhere, whether it's accounting or donations or payroll or all of the above, that I would check this linking fairly regularly. And what I mean by regularly is at least once a year and maybe more often, okay? Especially if I've got multiple users in the system. So let's kind of look at a couple really, I think, fairly common linking locations for church windows. So let's start in donations. We can either do this from donations or in accounting. So if I click on donations, we go right up here to the top to our transfer to accounting option right up here at the very top. Hopefully everybody should see that poorly drawn box and arrow that I'm drawing here, right up here at the top. So when we click on our transfer to accounting window, it opens up. This is called transfer donations in accounting, but it opens the exact same window in accounting. And the window that we're talking about here is the tab here called Default Account Links, right here, between transfer donations and posted transfers. So right between those two is the one called Default Account Links. When we click on that, it reveals our interface between donations and accounting. Okay, so here we see our giving accounts right here on the left. They're highlighted in blue. Over here are our giving accounts. And then over here on the middle and the right are the debit and credit accounts where those monies are going to be transferred to in accounting each week or however often you transfer batches over to accounting from donations, okay? So this screen must be completed, okay? So, even if you're saying that you've got accounts that you don't use, Well, what if you do have an account that's used? Okay, even though you have one person who's deciding to give to that one particular giving account for 1 week, if it's not linked here, it's not going to go transfer over to donations at all until that is linked. Okay, so it's important that we come into this window that we ensure each one of our giving accounts are linked to both a debit and a credit account. Accounting is a debit and credit, dual entry debit credit system. So for every debit, you've got a corresponding credit and vice versa. So if even one of these accounts is blank and money is posted to that particular giving account, none of the batch or none of the giving for that day is going to be transferred over to accounting at all. It doesn't just transfer what's linked and leave the rest. The whole entire batch will not transfer. Okay? The other portion of this, which is, again, we're kind of diving in a little deeper here with regards to this, is the linking of the income and expenses to their respective fund. And we're going to now shift our focus over to that, okay? So the example that I want to use for what I'm talking about, okay, can anybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm getting notes that folks can't hear me. I mean, if you haven't, please log down to audio. But it sounds like my audio is coming through loud and clear to me. I'm not hearing anybody else stating that this is the case. Okay, I think Ross will hopefully help out with that. Okay, great. Folks are telling me that they can hear me. Okay, great. Okay, so the example that I'm going to use in the presentation here today is here's our building fund giving account. It's clearly posting and depositing to our Huntington Bank checking, and we are saying it's posting to our 420-100 building fund contributions account, okay, or income account in accounting, okay. Well, it's great. We've got the, we're kind of, rolling merrily along that our, building fund income is, debiting to our checking account and it's crediting to our building fund contributions account, okay. Well, we also have to jump over to our accounting module now, and we have to verify that those income accounts are also crediting to the proper fund, okay? And so what I mean by that is that our income and our expenses are all linked to funds, okay? So here we scroll down and we see our building fund balance account, okay? This is our building fund, okay? Over here are our income and our expense accounts, okay? Well, I'm going to go down and find that building fund contributions account now, okay? And this is really the part of it that I think is most commonly overlooked. So if I go down to my building fund contributions and I highlight that account, I click on my balance tab, I've got almost $6,000 of income that has been received for the 2015 year that is, of income that should be crediting to my building fund contributions. Okay, that is credited to my building fund contributions. Logic says that it should also then be crediting to my building fund. Okay, well, if I click over under my detail tab here and I look halfway down, I also see that under the fund that my building fund contributions is actually linked to and crediting to my general operating or my operating fund, not to my building fund. So right now, that almost $6,000 of general or building fund contributions money has been crediting to the wrong fund. All right. This is also demonstrated in a couple of other different ways in accounting as well. If we go to, say, reports, financial, fund activity report, I say, detailed, we're going to go to funds, and I'm going to unselect all and click over here and click on print. Okay, I've got technology income here linking to my showing as crediting or linking to my building fund balance, but that building fund contributions income account is nowhere in sight here. Okay, so that clearly is demonstration here that my $6,000 of building fund income has not credited to that fund. Okay. So, how do we fix that? Well, that's fairly simple. We go back to our chart of accounts, we click under our search, we find the building fund income or contributions account. I click over here to my general where it's currently showing my operating fund. I click the down arrow, I click my building fund, and that income, that $5,900 worth of income, which is now showing up here as crediting to my building fund contributions that was initially put into my general operating fund, has now been taken out of my operating fund and follows along with the income account and goes right back over to my building fund. Okay, so now when I click under my building fund balance, or I click on my tree view and I click the building fund, there my building fund contributions has now been linked or changed or corrected over to my building fund where it belongs. So in terms of your linking donations over to accounting, and we're going to see how this also works over in payroll as well, is kind of twofold. We can't just trust that the income and expense accounts or the asset account, or the income and expense in that case, the credit account in our giving accounts, are always flowing into the account or the fund that we're wanting. Okay, you've got to check that. Okay. The way I also recommend, and again, I said I would go periodically through and check that once in a while. So if I go to my transfer donations, I click my default account links, notice I've got this print account links button right up here in the upper right corner. Okay, so however often I feel comfortable or feel that it's important to do that, I would simply click this. All I'm really worried about are my debit and credit accounts at that point and the giving account. I don't need the prepaid, albeit that's for my prepaid pledges. But now when I click on print, I would print this report and I would simply jump over to my chart of accounts and I would go through this list and make sure that all of my 4s and 5s, or my 4s and anything that was crediting or linking to a fund is linked to that income and expense is linking to the proper fund. Okay? Take me just a few minutes to do that. But I would then be reassuring myself that however often it occurred, that my income and expenses were linking and posting to their proper fund. Very important. So again, linking to donations is not only based on this default account links tab, but are the income accounts or income or credit accounts that are showing up here linking or connecting to their proper fund. Okay, if we scroll down further, I think we see here, our youth trips payments is linked to an expense. Same thing occurs. Is that youth trips expense debiting to or crediting to the proper fund? So I would need to go check that. Okay. All right, let's steer our focus over to payroll now, and I'm going to show you how that also is impacted by linking as well. Whoops, there's already one running, it says. All right, so here if I go to my payroll and my account number setup, the example I'm going to use here is for my, if I'm not mistaken, it's my youth director coordinator. Here's our default account links in our payroll module, our account number setup. Here's our base salary and overtime and additional expense accounts. Here's the employer's FICA matching expense. We check all of the other tabs here to check the expense, as well as our checking account, federal and state. Okay, this is where we set up and establish the accounts to where our payroll will debit and credit the same way. Anytime we're dealing with income and expense accounts themselves, 4s and 5s, we have to reassure ourselves or make sure that those monies are debiting or crediting to the proper fund. If not, our balance sheet and our balance sheet will be wrong. Okay, our fund activity report will be wrong. So an example of that again is when I look at my base salary expense account for my youth director, here is 510-230. Okay. If I jump back over to my accounting module and I go to my account, manage accounts, I type in 510-230 here. Oh, sorry, Christian Ed. Here's my Christian Ed director. If I look at all of my other expense accounts for compensation, they're considered by our church a general operating expense. Most churches it probably is. But if I click under my Christian Ed benefits, Ed director and benefits account, I clearly see over here that that is linked to my building fund right here. Okay. Under the detail tab to the right under fund. All right. So I've got, again, almost over $8,500 worth of money which has been charged to my building fund throughout the year, since the beginning of the year, that really should be charged to my general operating fund. So the same way that I did with my income account for building or contributions for building fund, click over under the Detail tab, click the down arrow, choose General Operating Fund. It saves it automatically. Those expenses now have been replaced back into, that balance has been increased back into my building fund, and the $8,500 plus of Christian Ed Director benefits that have been paid through payroll are now being charged to my operating fund the way that they should. Okay? So again, we don't want to just double check or just assume that, like in the case of our payroll, sure, okay, a lot of folks leave it at that. They go, oh, well, this is the right expense account for my Christian Ed Director. I'm done. Okay, well, that may be not true. So there's a flow of money that has to occur not only in terms of the module that you're working with, but where does the money go into in accounting? Okay, and that's what we're basically trying to show you is that the linking is twofold. Not only are we linking it to the proper donation account or the proper employee and their account number setup, but are the income and expenses themselves linked to the proper fund? And again, there are a couple different ways, again, we can check that in accounting. We can go right here under our Tree View tab in our chart of accounts. So I can go over here to my Tree View tab. Here's my operating fund. If I click the down arrow, here are all of my income and my expense accounts that are linked to my operating account, including the subledgers. Okay? Not really very user-friendly in terms of that. The way I would probably go about doing it would be to go up to my reports, financial, fund activity report. I would leave the detailed checking accounts with zero balance. I would go to my columns. I would remove current activity and year-to-date activity, just looking at account number and account name. Clicking on print. So here on this report, I see general operating fund. Here are all of my income accounts for operating fund. Then that's separated into my expenses, and I would just continue down the list. So, I would go down the list and look and make sure that all of my income and expenses are linked properly. Once I'm done with my general operating fund, let me get rid of my drawing tool here. It moves down into my next fund. So here's my building fund with my income and my expenses. So it might not be as much about looking to see which fund is linked properly, but maybe ones that are linked improperly. I look at this account, if I go building fund contributions, and if I saw that under my income accounts for my general fund, I might go, that sounds like that should be a building fund income account. And then I could go in and link it or change the linking. So the detailed fund activity report, including accounts with zero balance, omitting your amount columns, will allow you to see the income and expenses that are linked to each fund. Okay. So with just about another couple minutes left, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. If anybody has any questions, please go ahead and key those into the questions portion, and I'll see what I can't do to answer that or clarify those for us. Maybe something wasn't entirely clear. So I'm going to wait and see if somebody's kind of typing something in there. Looks like we're seeing some folks darting out, but I'm going to wrap that up there with what I'm talking about. A recording of this video or webinar presentation will be eventually made available on our blog page at our website. If you want to revisit it, I can't say exactly when, but hopefully sometime here within the next few weeks. But again, if you need to go, please choose the File menu and exit Leave Webinar. Catherine, yes, it is retroactive to the start of the year only. I suppose I should have clarified that. Because we're in a specific accounting year, the this linking will only change which fund it's linked to for the 2015 accounting year only, and will not affect prior years' linking of those income and expenses, different accounting years. Please quickly explain the prepaid concept. Well, what I think the person is asking is, under our transfer donations here in account links, our prepaid credit account. That's for our prepaid pledges that say prepaid pledges that we're receiving for in 2015 for a pledge campaign or pledge that is for 2016. So this is a liability account that we're setting up to credit all of our monies, our prepaid monies that are received in 2015 for 2016. This is because we don't want these prepaid monies to show up as income in 2015 on our 2015 Treasurer's Report. So the money will simply sit in the prepaid pledge holding account until we get to 2016, at which point we'll just journal entry it from the liability to income in the year that the pledge was in the year of the pledge. This is important too, but it is a liability. We're bypassing our Treasurer's Report in 2015 for prepaid pledges deliberately. Good. I hope that helps. You can find more on that under the end of year or New Year prep documentation for donations about that prepaid pledges. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Just see if there's somebody else typing something in here. All right, well, it doesn't appear that there is, folks, so I must have done a very thorough job. We hope it helps. Thank you so much. Again, look for this presentation on the blog page at some point in future. Thank you so much for attending. We hope to see you at another Church Windows future user group webinar. And thank you so much. Take care. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.